Hello, Grace Community Church. Pastor Steve here, continuing our journey going through the entire Bible, cover to cover. And today I'm recording on my front porch of my house, and we're going through Genesis chapter 15, 16, and 17. So if you haven't read those chapters yet, pause, read them, and then you can come back and watch this video. First of all, I want to say that going through these passages afresh for me almost makes me envious for some of you who might be reading these passages for the first time. What we are looking at in today's reading, January 5, is some amazing scripture that is pivotal for understanding the whole of the Bible. And it comes up in the New Testament. So God has called Abraham. At this point, his name is Abram, and he is called that he's going to be the father of a great nation. But Abraham sees a problem, and the problem is that his wife is barren, and there's just no way that he can be a father of a great nation. This begins God revealing himself to Abraham and to who he is and how he functions. The first thing I want to point out is that this is a passage which gives us a key verse, which the Apostle Paul will eventually bring up. It's verse 6. It says this, "And Abraham believed God, and it was credited unto him as righteousness." Now the Apostle Paul will take this verse and point out the nature of being saved by grace and not by works. So this chapter is pivotal for our understanding of what's going on. But then God makes a promise. And if you read this, it probably was bizarre. Cutting an animal in two and separating the parts. And then this lantern going back and forth. As scholars look back at this, they call this a suzerain treaty. But what makes this treaty so interesting is that God is the only one, you might say, who signs the treaty. In other words, it's not based on Abraham's response. It is based on God from beginning to end. And once again, we see the foundations of salvation by grace. You're not getting anywhere with God because you keep your nose clean and you avoid all sin. It's because you believe in him. It's because you believe that what he said will come true. Abraham, look at the stars. Can you count them? Look at the grains of sand. Can you count them? So will your descendants be, with the end result that you will have a relationship with God, not based on works, but based on faith. We also hear this interesting prophecy that Abraham receives, that the people of Israel, they're not called that yet, Abraham's descendants, will experience 400 years of slavery. Well, that's an interesting prophecy because that's not going to come for quite some time. But God lays his cards out for Abraham to see that. Well, Abraham is not a perfect man, and he sees the problem of a wife who cannot conceive a child. So his wife, Sarai, comes up with a brilliant idea. Why don't you sleep with my handmaid, my servant, my slave, and have a baby through her? Well, Abraham doesn't take too much talking in for that to happen. And so that's exactly what happens. Hagar conceives, and as a result, Sarai becomes very jealous and very angry at this woman and wants her sent away. So Abraham does that. It was when Hagar is in the wilderness that something very interesting happens. God sees her, tells her to go back to her mistress, and then Hagar gives God a brand new name. I want you to see this because you probably read it in the text. In the Hebrew, it is El Roi, but this is what it means. You are the God who sees me. I think that's one of the most beautiful names that we could ever have for God. Because when you're alone, when you're struggling, when you're full of fear, God sees you. He saw Hagar. He sees you. He sees us. Moving on in the passage, God asks Abraham a pretty big deal. I want you to circumcise yourself and the whole family, a whole group of you. Now, that would be a pretty tough thing. But this is once again going to be important for the following and unfolding of the Scripture, particularly seeing what God is going to do with the children of Israel. Later on, for example, in the book of 1 Samuel, you will hear somebody like Jonathan or somebody like David say this phrase, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that I should fear him?" What that means, somebody who God did not make a covenant with. And so that idea of being circumcised will become a standard of I am one of God's followers. So it's important to know. Just quickly, is God advocating that all men should be circumcised now? Actually, the Apostle Paul goes out of his way to say, no, that is not the case. But for understanding the Old Testament, it is a very important principle. And part of God's committing himself to Abraham is that he gives him a brand new name. Abram becomes Abraham, and Sarai becomes Sarah. And this relates to the promise that they will be the mother and father of a great nation. Hey, great to have you. See you tomorrow.